Why do you think sometimes as DJs they exclude Disco King Mario? I saw a documentary not too long ago about him, and it was saying that he pretty much was one of the first people that they saw to bring the equipment outside, and this was prior to what they call the hip hop's birthday.
Right. So here's the thing. Personally speaking, I don't necessarily feel like Disco King Mario is being excluded. He has a street named after him. We're talking about him right now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've had conversations with first generation B-boys turned DJs in Grand Mixer DST on the phone, just with my mouth zip. Because whenever I talk to the OGs, I shut the fuck up and I just
Mm-hmm.
listen.
Yep.
And he schooled me on Mario. So my thing is, I don't necessarily feel like he's being excluded. Here's the issue. Why do we celebrate Grandmaster Flash or Grand Wizard Theodore the way we do and not Disco King Mario? Maybe that is a better way of framing the question.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that we celebrate Grandmaster Flash and Grand Wizard Theodore and not Mario in the same way? And it's because we're talking about hip hop
Right.
and playing a record in it of itself isn't hip hop DJing. It's
Right.
standard DJing. When you play a record, you put a needle on a record and just let the record rotate as the needle is picking up this captured sound
Mm-hmm.
on the vinyl. That in it of itself is not hip hop. If it was, I could give you names like Francis Grazzo, David Mancuso,
Mm-hmm.
Nicky Ciano, Italian DJs that were doing this shit before Flash,
Mm-hmm.
before Herc, in discotheques. And they used to pick up the needle, place it on a record, and then let the record turn as the needle is picking up the captured sound on the vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's what hip hop is, then why aren't we also talking about Francis Grazzo, Nicky Ciano, and
Mm-hmm.
David Mancuso? We're not talking about them in terms of hip hop because this record becomes a hip hop tool the minute I do this and
Right.
start
Oh, I see what
scratching it.
you're saying. It's the
That's when it
impact.
becomes hip hop.
I see what you're saying.
Disco
The
King
impact.
Mario was not a hip hop DJ. He was a disco
Just
DJ.
play records. I got you. So I mean, it's the impact that each one of that Flash and Theodore put into the game.
Right.
I get it now. I get it now.
Right. So we talk about Flash and Theodore and Charlie Chase because these were the DJs that were actually taking their hand, putting it on the record, and moving the record back and forth and scratching, coaxing sound that otherwise would not appear if you just let the record skate underneath the needle.
Right.
Even Cool Herc was taking a series of disco records, rock records, funk records, soul records, finding the break part on these records and creating like an infantile version of what a mega mix would be now. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like if you listen to like the old Latin Rascal mixes from 98.7 Kiss, right? And how they just be editing sounds and making beats, 4 bars loops of a song, repeat over and over again. Herc was doing that in a very basic, elementary way with break records.
Mm-hmm.
And the first breakers, Zulu Kings, dudes like Charlie Rock, who's Black American, would tell you in a second, they started breaking at the Cool Herc parties.
Mm-hmm.
So although Herc wasn't necessarily known for scratching a record like Grandmaster Flash or Grand Wizard Theodore, he still had his merry-go-round technique of playing breaks, which makes it hip hop. In the book, I argue that hip hop is action. It's the synergy that you create with the other elements
Yeah.
of the culture, the rapping, the breaking. You know what I'm saying? Specifically, because
Okay.
with graph writers, to be honest with you, they really didn't really care much about, like, at least in the 70s, being at parties. Those dudes were in the yards at
Mhm.
1, 2 in the morning, writing crazy pieces on trains, right? And then going home and sleeping. But that synergy that took place between the DJ, the rapper or MC, and the breaker is what hip hop is. When you could point to an interview of an OG first generation breaker saying, yes, we were breaking at Disco King Mario parties, then you'll get my ear. You'll get me to kind of switch up my
Right.
whole thesis on this art and this culture. But I haven't seen that. And none of them have ever said that to me. Yes, Mario was playing music in the
Mhm.
parks, but he wasn't scratching, and there weren't b-boys breaking at his parties. He was a standard DJ, and that doesn't mean anything negative.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? It just means he wasn't doing what Herc, Flash, Theodore were doing by the mid 70s.
Right. Yeah, I just kind of asked because I mean, it was about him playing records and people just dancing and doing things like that. And Cool Herc, I guess his contribution would be facilitating the atmosphere for breakers to be able to get there where they got to get off and everything.
Exactly. That synergy between he, the DJ, the
Mm-hmm.
breakers, and even the MCs, that is hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to be straight up with you, man. I personally feel people that are trying to push this narrative on us about Mario are doing so because Mario is Black American.
Mm-hmm.
And these people don't want the face of hip hop to be a Jamaican.
Right.
So that's why there's this, in the last 3 or 4 years, narrative taking
Start
hold
seeing
about,
things
well,
pop up.
Mario was actually before Herc, and it was actually Mario that was the first to start doing parties in parks and playing music and bringing his gear out. Yeah, Mario might have, and I don't say this disrespectfully, man. Like, I respect all the OGs, even the ones that I disagree with. I respect them all. But playing music at a park jam does not make it hip hop DJing. What makes it
Mm-hmm.
hip hop DJing is taking your hand, putting it on the record, and coaxing a sound. Once you do that, that action of moving the record back and forth and
Right.
coaxing sound, and then taking doubles, two duplicate copies of the record that you're manipulating and going back and forth and backspinning and just doing what we know to be as hip hop DJing is what makes it hip hop.